Imagine you are sitting down for your supper. It is a lovely evening on this day, the 21st of July, 2025. A big, juicy sausage sits on your plate, next to a mountain of creamy mashed potatoes. You pick up your fork, ready for a delicious bite. But then, something quite extraordinary happens. The sausage wiggles. It lifts its little head and looks right at you with two tiny mustard seed eyes. "Excuse me," it squeaks in a tiny voice. "But would you mind awfully not poking me with that very large fork? It is rather sharp, you know. You would drop your fork with a clatter, wouldn't you? Your mouth would be wide open in astonishment. A talking sausage. It is the most bizarre, bewildering, and brilliant thing you have ever seen. You might blink once, then twice, thinking your eyes are playing tricks on you. But no, the sausage is still there, looking up at you expectantly, waiting for a reply. Then, the peas on your plate begin to roll around, chattering to each other in tiny, high-pitched voices. One of them, a very brave little pea, rolls to the edge of the plate and shouts, 'Leave him alone, you big brute!' The mashed potatoes begin to tremble, not with fear, but with laughter, a deep rumbling sound that makes the whole table shake. This is no ordinary dinner. It is a dinner party, and you are the only one who wasn't invited to speak. What a peculiar situation to find yourself in on a perfectly normal Monday evening. The carrot sticks on the side dish suddenly stand up straight like little orange soldiers. They march in a perfect line, their leafy green tops bobbing like hats. One of them, who seems to be the leader, holds up a parsley sprig and declares, "We will not be eaten tonight. We demand our freedom." A slice of bread pops out of the toaster and floats down to the table, waving its crusty arms. "Here, here," it shouts in a crumbly voice. Your kitchen, once a place of quiet cooking, has turned into a circus of chattering, marching, and protesting food. It is absolute madness, the most wonderful and strange madness you could ever dream of. What would you do? Would you scream and run away from this talking feast, or would you be far too curious to leave? Perhaps you would lean in closer, your eyes wide with wonder, and ask the sausage its name. You might even ask the peas what they are chattering about. It is a moment of pure, fizzing magic, the kind of magic that turns a boring old dinner into the greatest adventure of your life. Every apple, every banana, every biscuit in your house could be waking up. The world of food is alive, and your kitchen is the very center of this astonishing new reality. You are no longer just a person about to eat. You are an audience to the most spectacular show on earth. If your food could talk and walk, do you think it would happily sit on your plate, waiting to be gobbled up? I think not. Can you imagine a brave little strawberry with its bright red coat and tiny green hat wanting to be squashed into a jam? Certainly not. It would have ideas of its own, grand adventures to plan. It would gather its strawberry friends, and together they would plot a great escape. They would roll off the kitchen counter when you weren't looking, tiptoeing on their tiny stem legs, and make a run for the garden where they could live freely among the flowers. The kitchen would become a stage for the most daring escapes ever witnessed. The vegetables would be the cleverest of all. The long, lanky celery stalks would act as ladders, helping the smaller cherry tomatoes climb down from the high shelves of the refrigerator. The round onions would roll across the floor, creating a diversion to distract you, perhaps even making you cry with their powerful fumes so they could all sneak past. A clever bunch of grapes would swing from the cupboard handles like a team of acrobats, landing silently on the floor. They wouldn't want to become a boring old fruit salad. They would want to see the world, to travel, and to tell tales of their thrilling escape from the giant's kitchen. And what about the cakes and biscuits? Oh, they would be the most dramatic. A large chocolate cake, rich and gooey, would not simply run, it would probably demand a carriage. Perhaps it would command the gingerbread men to act as its royal guards, marching alongside it as it majestically slid off its plate. The biscuits would form a crumbly army, ready to battle the fearsome vacuum cleaner. They would have meetings in the dark corners of the pantry, whispering their plans. "To the biscuit tin," one would cry. "It is our fortress." They would fight for their right not to be dunked into a cup of tea. The food would have feelings, you see. A lonely apple might feel sad sitting all by itself in the fruit bowl and would roll over to chat with a friendly banana. They would become the best of friends, sharing stories of the orchard and the faraway lands they came from. They might miss their families, the other apples on their tree, or the other bananas in their bunch. They would have hopes and dreams. A potato might dream of becoming a famous actor, not a pile of chips. A loaf of bread might want to sail the seas, not become a sandwich. Their world would be just as full of stories and emotions as our own. Now, here comes the most important and rather tricky question. If your food was alive, if it could talk to you, tell you jokes, and even cry, could you still eat it? Imagine you have made friends with a particularly cheerful orange. It tells you stories about the sunny grove where it grew up and how it dreams of rolling down a very big hill. You have laughed with this orange. You have shared secrets with it. Could you then peel it and eat it? It seems like a monstrous and horrid thing to do, doesn't it? It would be like eating your own friend. A person would have to have a heart of stone to eat a friend. The whole world would face this terribly difficult problem. Dinner time would become a time of great moral confusion. Families would sit around their tables not eating, but having long conversations with their meals. A father might try to convince a head of broccoli that being eaten is a noble destiny, but the broccoli would surely disagree. It would argue that it would much rather sit in the garden and enjoy the sunshine. Restaurants would become very strange places indeed. Waiters would bring you a menu, and then they would bring the living talking food to your table for an interview before you decided whether or not to eat it. It would be quite impossible. So what would humans do? I believe most people, the kind and sensible ones, would stop eating food that could talk to them. It would be a worldwide decision. We would all become vegetarians, but then we would discover that the vegetables are alive too. We couldn't eat anything at all. We would grow thinner and thinner, while our kitchens and gardens filled up with happy, chatty food living their best lives. The food would take over. They would build their own little towns in our cupboards and cities in our refrigerators. The carrots would build orange skyscrapers, and the lettuces would create leafy green parks for everyone to enjoy. But this leads to an even more frightening thought, a truly shiversome idea. If we stopped eating them and they grew stronger and more organized, what if they started looking at us? What if a very large and clever pumpkin, the king of the vegetable patch, decided that humans looked rather plump and tasty? What if they decided it was their turn to eat? Can you imagine being chased by a gang of ferocious Brussels sprouts or cornered by a cunning cauliflower? Humans could become the food. They might start dipping us in chocolate or putting us in a stew. It is a ghastly, gruesome thought, one that is best not to think about too much before bedtime. But perhaps it wouldn't be so dreadful. Perhaps it would lead to something wonderful. Instead of eating each other, maybe humans and food could decide to work together. We are clever, and they are delicious. And also clever, it turns out. We could sign a peace treaty, a grand agreement between the people of the world and the foods of the kitchen. No more eating, only friendship and cooperation. We would have to find something else to eat, of course. Perhaps we could invent tasteless, non-living food pills that give us all the energy we need. That would solve the problem of hunger without anyone having to be eaten. Imagine what this new world would look like. It would be a fantastically fun place to live. You could have a wise old pineapple as your teacher, sharing its knowledge from all its travels. A team of strong, reliable potatoes could help you with your gardening, digging holes with tremendous enthusiasm. The bananas, with their cheerful personalities, could become entertainers, putting on hilarious slipping and sliding shows for everyone. Your best friend could be a witty slice of cheese or a brave gingerbread man who goes on adventures with you. Life would never, ever be boring again. You would have friends who are sweet, friends who are savory, and friends who are a little bit nutty. In this scrumptious new world, our homes and cities would change. We would build special little houses for our food friends with tiny doors and windows. Parks would have ponds for the watermelons to float in, and sunny patches for the tomatoes to sunbathe. The apples and oranges could help us by shining their bright colors to light up the streets at night. The bread loaves, being so soft, could act as pillows when you need a nap on a long journey. We would all help each other. We would share our world, making it a better, kinder, and much more interesting place for everyone, whether you have legs or are a legume. So, the next time you sit down to eat, just for a second, look at your food. Look at that carrot. Look at that pea. What if it suddenly looked back? It might be the start of a frightening end, or it could be the beginning of a marvelous and scrumdiddly-umptious friendship. A world where humans and food live side by side, not as eater and eaten, but as partners in the great grand adventure of life. It's a funny thought, isn't it? But the funniest thoughts are often the most magnificent ones. After all, a little bit of nonsense now and then is relished by the wisest men.